Some women walk down the aisle toward love. Elena Cross walked toward a debt paid in flesh, her body the currency, her future the collateral. The man waiting at the altar didn't want a wife. Victor Drazi wanted ownership. And in the cold October shadows of that Chicago church, surrounded by men whose hands were stained with more than champagne, Elena understood a truth that stopped her breath. This wasn't a wedding. It was a transaction, a transfer of property. But when those church doors exploded open and a stranger's hand reached through the chaos, she made a choice that would either kill her or set her free. If you want to see how far this story goes, hit that like button and drop a comment with your city. Let's see where Elena's choice takes us. The October wind cut through Chicago like a blade, and Elena Cross felt every inch of it through the thin lace of her wedding dress. White. Virginal. A sick joke, really, considering she was being sold like livestock. She stood in the bride's room of St. Augustine's Church, staring at herself in a mirror that had reflected countless happy brides. She wasn't one of them. The dress fit perfectly. Her father had made sure of that. He'd made sure of everything. Everything except giving her a choice. "You look beautiful, mija." Elena's jaw tightened at her father's voice. Carlos Cross stood in the doorway, his suit expensive but ill-fitting, the way everything about him had become ill-fitting since the gambling started, since the debts piled up, since Victor Drazi came collecting. "Don't call me that," Elena said quietly. "You lost the right to call me that when you put me up as collateral." Carlos flinched, but he didn't leave. "It's not like that. It's exactly like that." She turned to face him, and the look in her eyes made him take a step back. "You gambled away everything we had, the house, Mom's jewelry, your dignity, and when that wasn't enough, you promised him me. Victor's a good man. Victor's a gangster." The word hung in the air between them, sharp and ugly. "He runs guns, drugs, protection rackets. Half the city's afraid of him, and the other half is on his payroll. And you're handing me over like I'm some kind of peace offering." Carlos's face went red. "You don't understand how these things work." "I understand perfectly." Elena's voice was cold now, detached. "It was the only way to get through this. I understand that you're a coward. I understand that you'd rather sacrifice your daughter than face the consequences of your own stupidity. And I understand that after today, I don't have a father anymore." The words hit him like a physical blow. For a moment, she thought he might cry. Part of her, a small, dying part, wanted him to break down, to apologize, to tell her he'd find another way. But Carlos Cross had never been strong enough for that. "The ceremony starts in 15 minutes, he said finally, his voice hollow. "Don't be late." He left without another word. Elena turned back to the mirror. The woman staring back at her looked like a stranger, hair swept up in an elaborate style she'd never wear by choice. Makeup applied by a professional who'd been paid by Victor's people. A dress that cost more than Elena made in 6 months at the photography studio where she used to work. Victor had insisted she quit. Wives of powerful men didn't need jobs. Wives of powerful men didn't need anything except obedience. Her phone buzzed. She shouldn't have looked. She'd promised herself she wouldn't torture herself with the outside world today, but her hands moved before her brain could stop them. It was Sarah, her best friend. Her only friend who'd had the guts to call her out on this insanity. "It's not too late. I have my car. I have money. Say the word, and I'm there." Elena's fingers hovered over the screen. It would be so easy. Just type 3 letters, Y-E-S. Sarah would come. They'd run. Maybe they'd make it. But Victor Drazi didn't let things go. And men like him had long memories and longer reach. If Elena ran, he'd find her. And when he did, it wouldn't just be her who paid the price. Sarah would pay. Carlos would pay. Anyone who'd helped her would pay. She deleted the message without responding. The door opened again. This time it was Victor's sister, Celeste, a woman who wore expensive clothes like armor and smiled like a shark. "It's time," Celeste said, looking Elena up and down with an expression that suggested she was evaluating merchandise. "Victor's waiting." "How nice for Victor." Celeste's smile didn't waver, but her eyes went flat. "Let me give you some advice, Elena. The sooner you accept your new reality, the easier your life will be. Victor can be generous to women who please him, and very, very unpleasant to those who don't. Is that what you tell yourself? Elena met her gaze steadily. To make peace with whatever he did to put that look in your eyes? For just a second, Celeste's mask slipped. Something raw and wounded flashed across her face. Then it was gone, buried under years of practiced indifference. You're going to learn, Celeste said softly. One way or another, you're going to learn. She left, and Elena was alone again. The church bells began to ring. Time was up. Elena walked through the hallway on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else. At the end of the corridor, Carlos waited to walk her down the aisle, to give her away. The terminology was obscene in its accuracy. Elena, he started. Don't. She took his arm because the ceremony required it, but she didn't look at him. Just don't. The church doors opened. St. Augustine's was full, rows and rows of people Elena didn't know, wearing expensive suits and dead eyes. Victor's world, his associates, his family, his empire. And somewhere in those pews, probably watching with satisfaction, were the people her father owed, the ones who'd accepted this arrangement in lieu of payment. At the altar, Victor Drazi waited. He was handsome in the way predators are handsome, all sharp lines and controlled power. 42 years old, wealthy beyond measure, connected to every dirty deal in Chicago. He wore his tuxedo like a second skin, perfectly tailored, perfectly pressed. When he smiled at her, it didn't reach his eyes. Those eyes were the worst part. Dark, calculating, utterly devoid of warmth. They looked at her the way a man looks at a new car, admiring the exterior, already planning how to use it. Elena forced herself to walk forward. Left foot, right foot, don't think, don't feel, just survive. The music swelled, some traditional wedding march that sounded like a funeral dirge to her ears. She was halfway down the aisle when she made the mistake of looking at Victor again. He winked at her. That casual gesture, so smug, so certain of his victory, made something crack inside her chest. This was real. This was happening. In a few minutes, she'd be legally bound to this man. He'd own her in every way that mattered, and there was nothing she could do about it. She was 3 rows from the altar when the church doors exploded open. Not literally. There was no bomb, no dramatic blast. But the sound of those heavy wooden doors slamming against stone might as well have been an explosion for the effect it had. Every head turned. A man stood in the doorway, backlit by the gray October afternoon. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a black suit that looked like it had been designed for violence. He didn't rush, didn't shout, just walked down the aisle with the kind of calm, deliberate purpose that made Elena's breath catch. The church erupted into chaos. Victor's men reached for weapons, guns appearing from shoulder holsters, waistbands, ankle rigs. The guests screamed and dove for cover. The priest backed away from the altar, hands raised in surrender. But the stranger didn't stop walking. Adrian! Victor's voice cut through the noise, sharp as a knife. You've got some balls showing up here. So they knew each other. That was almost worse. The stranger, Adrian, stopped directly beside Elena and Carlos. Up close, Elena could see his face clearly. Mid-30s, maybe. Hard features that suggested he'd seen things that would break most people. A scar cut through his left eyebrow, pale against tan skin. Eyes so dark they were almost black. And when they landed on Elena, she felt the impact like a physical touch. Elena Cross, he said. His voice was rough, quiet, and somehow more terrifying than if he'd shouted. You have a choice to make. She's not going anywhere, Victor snarled. She's mine. Paid for. Sealed deal. Human beings can't be owned. Adrian's eyes never left Elena's face. No matter what deals were made, no matter what debts were promised, you're not property. You're a person, and you have a choice. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. Around them, Victor's men had formed a perimeter, guns drawn, waiting for the order to fire. This man, this stranger, was about to die for interrupting a wedding, and he was offering her a choice. Who are you? She whispered. Someone who's going to walk out of here. Adrian extended his hand to her. The question is whether you're coming with me. This is insane, Carlos hissed. Elena, stay where you are. You don't get a vote anymore, Adrian said, his eyes flicking to Carlos with open contempt before returning to Elena. This is her decision. If you leave with him, Victor said, his voice dangerously soft, I will hunt you both down. I will make you watch while I destroy everyone you've ever cared about. And then I'll make you beg to come back to me." Elena believed him. Victor Drazi didn't make empty threats. But as she stood there, caught between the man who'd bought her and the stranger offering freedom, Elena realized something fundamental. She was dead either way. If she married Victor, the woman she was would die. Every dream, every hope, every piece of herself that mattered would be slowly suffocated under the weight of his ownership. If she left with Adrian, she might actually die. A bullet to the head, a knife in the dark, whatever method Victor chose for his revenge, at least one of those deaths meant she'd die as herself. Elena took Adrian's hand. His grip was warm, solid, and the moment her fingers closed around his, everything shifted. Victor roared something, a command, a curse, she couldn't tell, and the church erupted into violence. But Adrian was already moving. He pulled Elena against his side, his body a shield between her and the guns, and ran. Not toward the doors, there were too many men blocking that exit, but toward the side altar, where a small door led to the priest's private chambers. Gunshots cracked through the air. Elena heard wood splintering, stained glass shattering. Someone screamed. She couldn't tell if it was a guest or one of Victor's men. Adrian kicked open the side door and dragged her through it. They were in a narrow hallway now, dim and smelling of incense and old wood. Another door at the end led to the street. "Wait!" Elena gasped. The wedding dress was a nightmare. All that lace and tulle catching on everything. The heels she'd been forced to wear making it impossible to run properly. "I can't." Without a word, Adrian bent and ripped the bottom half of her dress clean off. The sound of tearing fabric was shockingly loud in the enclosed space. Elena stood there in what was now a ragged, knee-length dress, staring at him in disbelief. "Better," he said, then grabbed her hand again and ran. They burst out onto a side street. A black SUV sat at the curb, engine running. Adrian wrenched open the back door and literally threw Elena inside, diving in after her. "Go!" he barked. The driver, a lean man with silver threading through his dark hair, didn't need to be told twice. The SUV peeled away from the curb just as Victor's men spilled out of the church, guns raised. Elena heard more gunshots, felt the SUV swerve, but they were moving fast now, weaving through Chicago traffic, with a skill that suggested the driver had done this before. She was pressed against Adrian in the back seat, his arm around her shoulders, his body still positioned to shield her from any shots that might come through the windows. Her heart was trying to beat its way out of her chest. Her hands were shaking so badly she had to clench them into fists. "What?" Her voice broke. She tried again. "What just happened?" "You got married," Adrian said, and there might have been the ghost of dark humor in his tone. "Then you got unmarried. Congratulations." Elena started laughing. It was insane. She was in shock, obviously, because nothing about this was funny, but she couldn't stop. Great hysterical peals of laughter that bordered on sobs. Adrian didn't tell her to calm down. He just kept his arm around her and let her fall apart. When the laughter finally died, leaving her hollow and shaking, Elena looked at him. Really looked at him. "Why?" she asked. "Why did you do that?" Adrian's expression was unreadable. "Because Victor Drazi is a monster, and nobody deserves to be fed to monsters." "You don't even know me." "I know enough." That was cryptic and unsettling in equal measure. But before Elena could press for more, the driver spoke up. "We've got company, 2 cars staying close." Elena twisted to look out the back window. Sure enough, 2 black sedans were weaving through traffic behind them, closing the distance. "How long to the house?" Adrian asked. 20 minutes. Maybe 15 if I take the shortcuts." "Take them." The SUV accelerated and Elena was thrown back against the seat. They careened through the streets of Chicago, running red lights, cutting through alleys, the driver navigating with a precision that suggested he'd mapped every possible escape route in the city. Victor's cars stayed with them. "Marcus," Adrian said to the driver, his voice calm despite the chaos. "When we hit Lakeshore Drive, I need you to lose them completely. No trace." "On it." Elena's fingers dug into the leather seat. "Who are you people?" "People who aren't going to let you die today," Marcus said from the front seat. "Beyond that? Ask the boss. I just drive." They hit Lakeshore Drive doing 70. The Chicago skyline blurred past, all glass and steel and gray sky. Marcus wove between cars with inches to spare, and Elena closed her eyes, certain they were about to crash. When she opened them again, the pursuing cars were gone. "Lost them at the merge," Marcus reported. "We're clear." Adrian's arm finally relaxed from around Elena's shoulders. "Good. Stay sharp anyway. Victor's not going to give up that easily." "Victor's going to kill me," Elena said. The shock was wearing off now, replaced by a cold, creeping terror. "He's going to kill all of us." "He's going to try," Adrian agreed. "But he'll have to find us first. This is Chicago. He owns half the city, and I own the other half." Adrian's eyes met hers, and she saw something in them that was almost scarier than Victor's emptiness. Certainty. Absolute, unshakable certainty. Victor Drazi is powerful, but he's not untouchable. And if he wants to get to you, he's going to have to go through me. "Why?" Elena asked again, desperate now. "Why do you care? What am I to you?" Adrian looked away, out the window at the lake stretching cold and gray beside them. "Someone who deserves better than being bought and sold," he said finally. It wasn't an answer, not really, but it was all she was going to get right now. They drove north, leaving the city behind. The houses got bigger, farther apart. Trees replaced buildings. Eventually, Marcus turned onto a private road that wound through heavy woods, ending at a gate that looked like it belonged to a military installation. Marcus entered a code. The gate swung open. Beyond it, Elena saw the mansion. It sprawled across a hillside overlooking the lake, all stone and glass and sharp modern angles, beautiful and cold at the same time, surrounded by high walls, cameras, and men in dark suits who watched their approach with professional wariness. "Welcome home," Adrian said, and the way he said it made Elena's skin prickle. This wasn't a home. It was a fortress, and she'd just traded one prison for another. Marcus pulled up to the front entrance. Before Elena could move, Adrian was out of the SUV and opening her door, offering his hand again. She hesitated. That hand had pulled her out of the church, away from Victor, into this new uncertainty. But what choice did she have? She took it and let him help her out. The October wind was stronger here, coming off the lake with a bite that went straight through her ruined wedding dress. She was freezing, terrified, and so far out of her depth she couldn't even see the surface anymore. Adrian shrugged out of his suit jacket and draped it around her shoulders. It was warm from his body heat and smelled like expensive cologne and gunpowder. "Come on," he said. "Let's get you inside." The mansion's interior was as impressive as the exterior, all polished floors and modern art and furniture that looked like it belonged in a magazine. But Elena barely registered any of it. She was focused on the people. There were 4 of them in the main room, 3 men and a woman, all dressed in dark, practical clothing, all watching Elena with expressions ranging from curiosity to suspicion. "This is the runaway bride?" the woman asked. She was in her 30s, Elena guessed, with black hair pulled into a severe bun and eyes that could cut glass. "She doesn't look like much." "She looks like someone who just escaped Victor Drazi," Adrian said, his voice carrying a warning. "Which makes her either very brave or very stupid. Either way, she's under my protection now. Spread the word. Anyone who touches her answers to me." The temperature in the room seemed to drop about 10 degrees. Elena realized with a jolt that these people were afraid of Adrian. Not just respectful, actually afraid. What had she gotten herself into? "Reese," Adrian continued, nodding to the woman, "show Elena to the guest suite. Get her whatever she needs, clothes, food, anything, and post someone outside her door." "To keep her in or keep others out?" Reese asked. "Both." Elena's stomach clenched. "I'm a prisoner." "You're protected," Adrian corrected. "There's a difference." "Is there?" Elena pulled his jacket tighter around herself. "Because from where I'm standing, it feels pretty similar." For the first time, something that might have been respect flickered in Adrian's eyes. "Fair point. Let me be clear then. You're not locked in. You can leave whenever you want. Walk out that door right now if that's your choice." Elena glanced at the door, then back at him. "And Victor? We'll kill you before you make it to the main road. So I'm not really free to leave." "You're free to make whatever choice you want," Adrian said. "But choices have consequences. You stay here, you're safe. You leave, you're dead. That's not me controlling you. That's reality." It was, Elena had to admit, brutally honest, which somehow made it worse. "How long?" she asked. How long what? How long do I have to stay here? Until Victor gives up? Until he forgets about me? Adrian's expression was grim. Victor doesn't give up, and he doesn't forget. So the answer is, I don't know. Elena felt the last of her adrenaline drain away, leaving her hollow and exhausted. Her legs started to shake, and she had to lock her knees to stay upright. Reese moved forward, her expression softening slightly. Come on, she said, her voice gentler than before. Let's get you cleaned up and fed. You look like you're about to fall over. Elena wanted to argue, to demand more answers, to understand what the hell was happening to her life. But Reese was right. She was swaying on her feet, her vision going spotty at the edges. Okay, she whispered. Reese led her through the mansion, up a sweeping staircase, down a hallway lined with closed doors. The guest suite turned out to be bigger than Elena's entire apartment had been. Bedroom, bathroom, sitting area, all decorated in neutral tones that were probably meant to be calming but just felt sterile. Bathroom's through there, Reese said, pointing. I'll have someone bring up clothes in your size. Dinner's at 7 if you want to join us, or I can have a tray sent up. I'll eat here, Elena said. The thought of sitting at a table with Adrian and his people, making small talk like this was normal, was too much. Reese nodded. Fair enough. And Elena, for what it's worth, you did the right thing. Victor would have destroyed you. As opposed to this? Elena gestured at the luxurious prison around them. Yes, Reese said simply, as opposed to this. She left, and Elena heard the quiet click of the door closing. Then, a moment later, the sound of footsteps taking up position in the hallway outside. A guard, to protect her, to watch her. Elena walked to the window and looked out at the lake. It stretched gray and cold to the horizon, waves chopping white in the wind. Free and trapped at the same time, the water could go anywhere, but it couldn't escape being water. She understood the feeling. Her phone buzzed in the small purse Celeste had given her. God, was that just this morning? It felt like a lifetime ago. Sarah, where are you? Your dad says you ran off with some guy and Victor's losing his mind. Please tell me you're okay. Elena stared at the message. How could she possibly explain this? I'm safe, she typed finally. Can't talk now. I'll explain when I can. Don't worry about me. It was a lie. Sarah would absolutely worry. But what else could Elena say? She was about to put the phone away when another message came through. Unknown number. You made a mistake, Elena, but I'm a forgiving man. Come back within 24 hours and we'll forget this ever happened. After that, the offer expires. Victor. Elena's hand started shaking again. She read the message 3 more times, her mind racing. Could he mean it? Would he really just let this go if she came back? No. Victor Drazi didn't forgive. This was a trap, a way to get her to walk back into his reach voluntarily. And once he had her again, she deleted the message and blocked the number. Then, because her hands were still shaking and her mind was still spinning and she needed to do something or she'd start screaming, Elena went into the bathroom and turned on the shower. The water was scalding hot, almost painful, but she stood under it until her skin turned red and the last of the church's incense smell washed away. Until she could breathe again without feeling Victor's eyes on her. When she finally got out, wrapped in a towel that was softer than anything she'd ever owned, she found that someone had been in the room. A pile of clothes sat on the bed. Jeans, sweaters, undergarments still in their packages, all in her size. How did they know her size? That question led to darker ones. How much did Adrian know about her? How long had he been planning this? And most importantly, why? Elena got dressed in jeans and a soft gray sweater, both of which fit perfectly. Her wedding dress lay on the floor in a torn, pathetic heap. She picked it up, felt the weight of the ruined silk and lace, and experienced a savage satisfaction at how destroyed it was. This dress had been a costume for a role she refused to play. She threw it in the trash. A knock at the door made her jump. Yes? Dinner, a male voice called. Elena opened the door to find a young man holding a tray. He couldn't have been more than 25, with sandy hair and a friendly face that seemed out of place in this severe house. I'm Ethan, he said, offering a smile. I'm basically the house manager. Anything you need, you ask me. A time machine? Elena suggested. Ethan's smile widened. Fresh out of those, but I've got pot roast, mashed potatoes, and green beans. And pie for dessert. Despite everything, Elena's stomach growled. She hadn't eaten since breakfast, and that had been just coffee because she'd been too nervous for food. "Thank you," she said, taking the tray. Ethan nodded and started to leave, then paused. "Hey, I know this is all kinds of crazy, but Adrian's one of the good ones. I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but you're safe here. Safer than you've been in a long time." "How would you know?" Elena asked. "Because I know what Victor Drazi does to the people he owns." Ethan's expression went dark. "And trust me, you don't want to find out firsthand." He left before Elena could ask what he meant. She ate alone in her room, the food tasteless despite obviously being well prepared. Through the window, she watched the sun set over the lake, painting the water in shades of orange and red that looked like fire. Somewhere out there, Victor was planning his revenge. Somewhere in this house, Adrian was planning what? What did he want from her? And somewhere deep inside herself, Elena felt the first stirrings of something she hadn't felt in months. Anger. Not fear. Not resignation. Anger. She'd been sold, traded, stolen, and imprisoned. Her life had been decided by men who saw her as property, as leverage, as anything except a person with her own will. Well, fuck that. Elena Cross didn't know what tomorrow would bring. Didn't know if she'd survive the week, the month, the year. Didn't know if Adrian was her savior or just another captor in a different cage. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She was done being anyone's property. Whatever came next, she'd face it on her feet. And if Victor Drazi or Adrian Vale or anyone else thought they could control her, they were about to learn a very hard lesson. The woman they'd tried to trade like currency had teeth, and she was going to use them. Outside her window, night fell across the lake, and Elena Cross began planning her survival. Elena woke to the sound of voices arguing somewhere below her window. She'd barely slept. Every creak of the house, every footstep in the hallway had jerked her awake, heart pounding, certain that Victor's men had found her. But dawn had come anyway, gray and cold through the glass, and she was still alive. Small victories. She got out of bed and moved to the window. Down on the lawn, she could see Adrian and Marcus standing near the lake's edge, their conversation too distant to hear, but their body language clear enough. Marcus was gesturing sharply, his face tight with frustration. Adrian stood perfectly still, listening, his expression unreadable. Then Adrian said something that made Marcus go quiet. A moment later, Marcus nodded and walked away, his shoulders stiff with whatever argument he'd just lost. Adrian stayed by the water, looking out at the lake like a man searching for answers in the waves. Elena stepped back from the window before he could turn and see her watching. She had enough problems without adding voyeurism to the list. Her phone sat on the nightstand where she'd left it. 3 new messages, all from blocked numbers, which meant Victor had gotten creative after she'd blocked the first one. "TikTok, Elena. Time's running out. Your father's begging me to bring you back safely. Should I tell him you chose some stranger over your own family? I'm disappointed. I thought you were smarter than this." Elena deleted them all without responding. Engaging would only encourage him, make him think he was getting to her, even though he absolutely was. A knock at the door made her flinch. "Yes?" "It's Reese. Adrian wants to see you. Breakfast in 20 minutes. Not a request, Elena noted. A summons. "I'll be down," she called back. She showered quickly, dressed in fresh jeans and a black sweater from the pile of clothes someone had left, and tried to do something with her hair that didn't scream, "woman having a breakdown." She failed. Her reflection showed dark circles under her eyes, skin too pale, mouth set in a tight line that looked like her mother's when she'd been angry. Her mother, who'd died 3 years ago, never knowing that her husband would one day trade their daughter to pay his debts. Maybe that was mercy. Elena found her way downstairs by following the smell of coffee. The kitchen was massive, all stainless steel and marble counters, and completely at odds with the warmth that should come from a place where food was made. 6 people sat around a long table, Adrian at the head, Marcus to his right, Reese to his left, and 3 others Elena didn't recognize. They all looked up when she entered. "Elena," Adrian said, his voice neutral. "Sit." There was an empty chair at the far end of the table, as far from Adrian as possible while still technically joining them. Elena took it, hyper-aware of 6 pairs of eyes tracking her movement. Ethan appeared from nowhere with a plate of eggs, bacon, and toast, setting it in front of her with that same friendly smile from last night. Coffee? Please, Elena said, grateful for his normalcy in this sea of dangerous strangers. Everyone, Adrian continued once Ethan had poured her coffee and retreated, this is Elena Cross. For those who weren't here yesterday, she's under my protection until further notice. Elena, you've met Reese and Marcus. The others are Nikolai, James, and Sophia. Nikolai was built like a tank, with a shaved head and a scar that ran from his temple to his jaw. James looked like a college professor, all wire-rimmed glasses and neat beard, completely unremarkable except for the way his eyes calculated everything. Sophia was young, maybe Elena's age, with sharp cheekbones and the kind of beauty that made people underestimate her. None of them looked particularly happy to meet her. So, what's the plan? Nikolai asked, his accent thick. Russian, Elena thought. We babysit the girl until Drazi gets bored? Victor doesn't get bored, Elena said before Adrian could answer. He gets even. Nikolai's eyebrows rose. She speaks. She's sitting right here, Elena shot back. And she's not an idiot. You all think I'm a liability. You're probably right. But I didn't ask for any of this. And I sure as hell didn't ask to be the prize in someone else's pissing contest. Silence fell over the table. Then unexpectedly, Sophia laughed. I like her, Sophia said, grinning at Adrian. She's got spine. Spine doesn't stop bullets, Marcus muttered. No, Adrian agreed, but it's a start. He turned his attention to Elena, and she felt the full weight of his focus. You're right. You didn't ask for this, but you're here now, and we need to establish some ground rules. Such as? You don't leave the property without an escort. You don't contact anyone from your old life. You don't post on social media, send emails, make phone calls. Nothing that could give away your location. Elena's hand tightened around her coffee cup. So I'm a prisoner. You're alive, Reese corrected. Victor's already put out word that he's looking for you. Half of Chicago's criminal underground is searching. The other half is waiting to see what he'll pay for information. How much? Elena asked, morbidly curious. 200,000, James said quietly, plus favors owed. In our world, favors are worth more than cash. $200,000. For her. The woman who'd been a photographer's assistant making $35,000 a year, who'd eaten ramen for dinner more nights than not, who'd never been worth anything to anyone except as a disappointment to her father. Jesus, she breathed. He's making an example, Adrian said. Showing everyone what happens when someone takes something that belongs to him. It's not really about you, it's about power, about control. Feels pretty personal from where I'm sitting. That's because it is personal. To him. Adrian leaned back in his chair. Victor doesn't separate business from ego. An insult to one is an insult to both. You leaving him at the altar, that was the worst kind of insult. Public, humiliating, in front of everyone who matters in his world. Good, Elena said, surprised by the venom in her own voice. He deserves to be humiliated. Marcus shook his head. You don't understand how dangerous that makes this. A man like Drazi, embarrassed like that, he won't stop until he's made you pay. And payment means blood. Then maybe you should have left me at the church, Elena snapped. At least then it would have just been my life ruined instead of dragging all of you into it. We were already in it, Adrian said, his tone flat. This started long before yesterday. Elena froze. What do you mean? But Adrian just shook his head. Later. Right now we need to focus on keeping you breathing. He turned to Marcus. Security update? Cameras picked up 2 cars doing slow passes on the main road last night, Marcus reported. Different plates, different makes, but same pattern. They're probing, testing our perimeter. Double the patrols, and I want eyes on every approach. Road, water, air, if they're stupid enough to try a drone. Already done. What about the city? This from Reese. Any word from our contacts? James adjusted his glasses. Victor's put out feelers through the usual channels. He's being careful. Nothing that could be traced back to him officially. But word is he's beyond furious. He's called in markers from New York, Detroit, even Miami. This isn't just local anymore. Elena felt sick. She'd known Victor was dangerous, but hearing it laid out like this, the resources, the reach, the sheer determination to find her, made it real in a way it hadn't been before. I should leave, she said quietly. Get out of the country. Go somewhere he can't follow. There's nowhere he can't follow, Adrian said. Victor has connections in 15 countries. You run, you'll be found, and without protection, you'll be dead within 48 hours. So what then? I just hide here forever? You hide here until we find a way to neutralize the threat. Elena laughed, and it came out bitter. Neutralize. That's a nice way of saying kill him. If necessary, Adrian said, and the casual way he said it made Elena's blood run cold. But there are other options. Victor's empire isn't as solid as he thinks. He's got enemies, weak points. If we can leverage those, you mean blackmail? I mean survival. Adrian's eyes hardened. You think Victor won't kill you if he gets the chance? You think he'll sit you down for a reasonable conversation about your choices? No, Elena admitted. I think he'll make me suffer first, make an example out of me, then kill me anyway. Then stop fighting the only people trying to keep that from happening. The words hit like a slap. Elena wanted to argue, to push back, but what could she say? He was right. She was in a cage of her own making, every choice that had led her here. From her father's gambling to her own desperate grab for freedom had locked the bars tighter. Fine, she said. What do you need from me? Adrian studied her for a long moment. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small thumb drive, sliding it across the table toward her. 3 weeks ago, he said, you did a photography job, corporate event at the Meridian Hotel. You remember it? Elena frowned. Vaguely. It was boring, just a bunch of businessmen networking. Why? Because one of those businessmen was Senator Mitchell Carson, and one of the other attendees was Victor Drazi. You photographed them together. So? Rich people know other rich people. That's not exactly groundbreaking. It is when the senator is supposed to be leading an investigation into arms trafficking, James interjected. And when the man he's shaking hands with runs one of the largest illegal weapons pipelines in the Midwest. Elena's mouth went dry. You think the photos I took? We don't think? We know. Adrian tapped the thumb drive. This contains copies of every photo you took that night. In the background of one of them, there's a document visible on a table. The angle's wrong for anyone to read it in the published version, but with enhancement, we can make out enough to know it's a shipping manifest. Weapons. Lots of them. Going to buyers that would make the federal government very interested. And you want me to, what? Testify? I don't even remember taking that photo. We don't need you to testify. We need you to help us understand the context. Who was standing where? What conversations you overheard? Anything that might help us build a bigger picture. Elena stared at the thumb drive like it was a live grenade. If I do this, if I help you go after Victor, he'll already want you dead, Reese cut in. This doesn't change that, but it gives us leverage, a way to put him in prison instead of just playing defense forever. And if it doesn't work? Then at least we tried, Adrian said simply. It was insane. All of it. Elena should be running, hiding, begging Victor for forgiveness, not plotting to help take him down. But that anger from last night was still there, burning low and steady in her gut. Victor had bought her like cattle, had planned to own her, control her, break her into whatever shape pleased him. The hell with that. Okay, Elena said, I'll help, but I want something in return. Adrian's eyebrow rose. You're negotiating? You want my cooperation? Then yes, I'm negotiating. Elena met his gaze steadily. I want to know why. Why you crashed my wedding. Why you're protecting me. Why any of this matters to you. For a long moment, Adrian didn't respond. The others at the table shifted uncomfortably like she'd asked something forbidden. Finally, Adrian stood. Walk with me. It wasn't a request. He led her out of the kitchen, through the mansion, out onto a terrace overlooking the lake. The morning was gray and cold, wind whipping off the water hard enough to make Elena's eyes sting. 3 years ago, Adrian said, not looking at her, Victor Drazi tried to expand his territory into the south side. My territory. We negotiated. He agreed to stay in his lane. Then he killed 4 of my people to send a message that negotiations meant nothing. Elena waited. There was more. One of those 4 was my younger brother. Oh. I'm sorry, Elena said, and meant it. Don't be. He knew the risks. Adrian's voice was flat, emotionless. But Victor crossed a line, so I've been waiting, watching, looking for the right moment to hit him where it hurts. And I'm that moment. You're an opportunity, a crack in his armor. Now Adrian did look at her, and his eyes were cold. When I heard he was forcing you into marriage, when I saw the photos from your engagement announcement and recognized you from the Meridian event, I realized you were the key. The witness who didn't know she was a witness, the leverage I needed. Elena felt something twist in her chest. Disappointment? She hadn't realized she'd been hoping for something else, something noble. So you didn't save me, she said quietly. You just saw a useful tool. I saw both. Adrian's expression softened slightly. Would I have crashed that church if you weren't useful? Probably not. I'm not a hero, Elena. I don't rescue damsels in distress for the sake of chivalry, but does that mean I don't care that you're free? That I wouldn't have hated watching you marry that monster? No. Both things can be true. It was honest, brutally so, and somehow Elena respected that more than pretty lies about rescue and protection. What happens after? She asked. If we take Victor down, if this actually works, what happens to me? That's up to you. Is it? Or will I just be traded to the next person who needs something from me? Adrian turned to face her fully. I don't own you, Elena. I pulled you out of one cage. I'm not going to put you in another. When this is over, you walk away free. That's the deal. Well, why should I trust that? Because unlike your father and unlike Victor, I don't need to own people to have power over them. His voice was quiet, certain. I'm offering you a choice. Help me destroy the man who tried to buy you, and in return you get your life back. Real freedom, not the illusion of it. Elena studied his face, trying to find the lie, but all she saw was exhaustion and old anger and something that might have been sincerity. Okay, she said again, I'll help, but on my terms. What terms? I'm not just going to sit in a room and answer questions. If we're doing this, I want to be part of it. I want to know the plan, understand the risks, have a say in what happens next. Absolutely not, Adrian said immediately. You're a civilian. You stay behind walls where it's safe. Safe, Elena repeated, tasting the word. Is that what I'm here? Safe? She gestured at the mansion, the guards, the cameras. Or just a different kind of trapped. There's a difference between being trapped and being smart. Then let me be smart on my own terms. Elena stepped closer, anger overriding her fear. I'm sick of men deciding what's best for me. My father decided I should pay his debts. Victor decided I should be his wife. You decided I should be your what? Your witness? Your pawn? Well, here's what I'm deciding. If I'm going to risk my life either way, I'd rather do it on my feet than on my knees. Something flickered in Adrian's expression. Respect, maybe. Or recognition. You don't know what you're asking for, he said. I know I'm asking to stop being treated like a porcelain doll that might break. Elena's hands clenched into fists. I've been photographing events for 3 years. I blend into backgrounds. People forget I'm there. You want to get close to Victor's operations? I can get closer than any of your armed guards ever could. No. Yes. Elena didn't back down. Because here's the truth. You need me. Not just for what I saw that night, but because I'm invisible. I'm nobody. And nobody can go places that somebody can't. Adrian stared at her for a long, tense moment. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. It was small, barely there, but genuine. You're either very brave or completely insane, he said. Can't I be both? The smile widened, just a fraction. I'll think about it. But right now you're staying put while we figure out next steps. That's non-negotiable. It wasn't what Elena wanted, but it was better than nothing, a foot in the door. Fine, she said. But I'm not staying locked in my room like some kind of princess in a tower. If I'm stuck here, I want access to the house, the grounds, information about what's happening. Supervised access, Adrian countered. Supervised by someone who doesn't treat me like I'm made of glass. I'll assign Sophia. She won't coddle you. Elena nodded, satisfied for now. She turned to head back inside, then paused. Adrian? Your brother. What was his name? Adrian's jaw tightened. Daniel. Why? Because if we're going to do this, I should know what we're fighting for. And it's not just about me or your revenge. It's about Daniel, too. She walked away before he could respond, leaving him alone on the terrace with his ghosts. Back inside, Elena found Sophia waiting in the hallway, leaning against the wall with the casual grace of a cat. "So," Sophia said, falling into step beside Elena, "you just negotiated with Adrian Vale. Either you're stupid or you've got bigger balls than most of the men in this house."
Maybe both, Elena said, echoing her earlier words. Sophia laughed. "Yeah, I definitely like you. Come on, if you're going to be stuck here, I might as well show you around properly, and maybe teach you a few things about not getting killed. Is that a real concern? Here, I mean, not just out there with Victor." Sophia's expression turned serious. "Always. In this world, threats come from everywhere. Inside, outside, places you don't expect."
"Adrian's good at what he does, but he's not perfect. And his enemies are patient. Are you saying someone in this house might—" "I'm saying trust is earned, not given, even here." Sophia pushed open a door, revealing a room filled with monitors and computer equipment. "This is central security. Every camera, every sensor, every alert comes through here." A young man sat at the main console, headphones on, eyes scanning multiple screens. He looked up when they entered, pulling off the headphones. "Sophia, who's your friend?" "This is Elena. The reason we're all on high alert. Elena, meet Tommy. He sees everything." Tommy offered a shy wave. "Not everything, but most things. I've been tracking the increased activity around the perimeter. Victor's people are getting bolder." "How bold?" Elena asked. Tommy pulled up a screen showing heat signatures. 3 separate reconnaissance attempts last night. They're mapping our defenses, looking for weak spots." "Are there weak spots?" Elena's stomach clenched. "There are always weak spots," Sophia said. "The trick is making sure they don't find them before we patch them." Elena stared at the monitors, at the digital representation of the walls between her and Victor's revenge. It all felt so fragile suddenly. Technology could fail. People could be bribed. Walls could be breached. "How long can we hold out?" she asked quietly. Sophia and Tommy exchanged a look. "Honestly?" Sophia said. "As long as we need to. Adrian doesn't lose. He can't afford to. Everyone loses eventually. Maybe, but not today." Sophia guided Elena back out of the security room. "Come on, I want to show you the armory." "Why would I need to see the armory?" "Because if the walls do come down, you're going to need to know how to defend yourself, and I doubt Victor taught you to shoot." Elena had never held a gun in her life. The thought terrified her, but Sophia was right. If the worst happened, helplessness would get her killed faster than anything. The armory was in the basement, behind a heavy steel door that required both a keycard and a fingerprint scan. Inside, weapons lined the walls, handguns, rifles, things Elena didn't even have names for. "Pick one," Sophia said, gesturing at the handguns. I can't." "You can. You just haven't tried yet." Sophia selected a compact pistol, checked it with practiced efficiency, then handed it to Elena grip first. "This is a Glock 19, 9mm. Standard, reliable, not too much kick. Hold it like this." She adjusted Elena's grip, her hands sure and steady. "Now, basics. Never point it at anything you're not willing to destroy. Keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. Always treat it like it's loaded, even if you know it's not." Elena's hands were shaking. The gun felt heavier than it should, dangerous in a way that had nothing to do with its physical weight. "I can't do this," she whispered. "You can," Sophia said firmly. "Because the alternative is being a victim. And you didn't come this far just to give up now." Elena looked up at her, saw the certainty in Sophia's eyes, and made a choice. "Okay," she said. "Teach me." They spent the next hour in the basement range, Sophia coaching Elena through the basics of stance, aim, breath control. Elena was terrible at first, her shots going wide, her hands shaking, her whole body flinching at the recoil. But slowly, painfully, she got better. By the time Sophia called it quits, Elena had managed to hit the target more often than not. Her ears were ringing despite the protection, her shoulders ached, and she felt wrung out in a way that had nothing to do with physical exhaustion. "Not bad," Sophia said, unloading the Glock. "For a first-timer, anyway. We'll practice every day. By the end of the week, you'll be decent. By the end of the month, you might actually survive a firefight."
I really hope it doesn't come to that. Hope for the best. Train for the worst. Sophia locked the gun away. That's how you stay alive in this world. They headed back upstairs where Ethan was waiting with lunch. Elena ate mechanically, her mind still replaying the feel of the gun in her hands, the sound of shots echoing in the enclosed space. She'd crossed another line today, become someone she didn't recognize. But maybe that was the point. The old Elena, the one who smiled and said yes and let herself be pushed around, that woman was dead, had died at the altar when she took Adrian's hand. This new Elena, the one learning to shoot, to negotiate, to fight back. She was still being born, and birth was always bloody. 4 days passed in a strange rhythm of normalcy and tension. Elena trained with Sophia every morning, her hands growing steadier on the Glock, her aim improving incrementally. Afternoons were spent with James, going through the photographs from the Meridian event, trying to remember details she'd never thought to notice. Who stood where? Who talked to whom? What documents sat on what tables? It was tedious work, made worse by the fact that Elena's memory was fuzzy at best. She'd been focused on getting good shots, not on memorizing the criminal conspiracies happening in the background. "This one," James said on the fourth afternoon, pointing at a photo on his laptop screen. "The man in the corner, gray suit. Do you remember him?" Elena squinted at the image. The man was partially obscured by a pillar, his face turned away from the camera. "Maybe?" There were so many people. James sighed, making a note. "That's Thomas Garrett. Works for a shipping company that's been flagged multiple times for customs violations. If we can prove he was coordinating with Victor." "That's a big if," Elena interrupted. "I took hundreds of photos that night. Most of them are just people standing around looking important. Sometimes that's all we need. The right people in the wrong place at the wrong time." James pulled up another image. "What about this? Can you see what's on that tablet?" Elena leaned closer. In the photo, a woman was holding a tablet, its screen partially visible. Elena could make out what looked like a spreadsheet, but the angle was too steep to read the content. "I can enhance it," James said, already typing. "But it would help if you remembered what she was discussing." "I don't even remember taking that photo," Elena admitted. "I was on autopilot most of the night. Point, shoot, move to the next angle. That's how these events go." James sat back, rubbing his eyes beneath his glasses. "Well, keep trying. Sometimes memories surface when you're not actively searching for them." Elena doubted it, but she nodded anyway. She was about to suggest they take a break when Marcus appeared in the doorway, his expression grim. "Adrian wants everyone in the main room, now." Something in his tone made Elena's stomach drop. "What happened?" "Just come." They found the others already gathered, Adrian standing by the windows, Reese and Nikolai flanking him, Sophia and Tommy huddled over a laptop. The tension in the room was thick enough to choke on. "What's going on?" James asked, moving to look at Tommy's screen. Adrian didn't turn from the window. "Victor's making his move. Tommy, show them." Tommy pulled up security footage from what looked like a city street. The timestamp showed earlier that afternoon. Elena watched as a car pulled up to a small house, and 3 men got out. They didn't knock, just kicked in the door and went inside. 2 minutes later, they dragged someone out. A woman, struggling and screaming silently in the footage. Elena's blood turned to ice when she recognized the woman's face. "Sarah," she whispered. "Your friend," Adrian said, finally turning to look at her. "Victor grabbed her 3 hours ago. He's making sure you know he has her." On cue, Elena's phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out with shaking hands. Another blocked number, but this time there was a photo attached. Sarah bound to a chair, her face bruised, eyes wide with terror. And a message, "Trade. You for her. Midnight tonight. I'll send the location." Elena couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Sarah, sweet, loyal Sarah who'd offered to help her run, who'd been her friend when no one else gave a damn. "It's a trap," Reese said flatly. "Obviously. He's using her as bait." "I know it's a trap," Elena managed, her voice thin. "But he'll kill her if I don't show up." "He'll kill her anyway," Marcus said. "And you. This isn't about making a trade, it's about punishing you both." Elena looked at Adrian, desperate for him to contradict them, to say there was a way to save Sarah without sacrificing herself. But his expression was stone.
They're right, he said. Victor has no intention of letting either of you walk away. This is theater. He wants you to watch her die, then kill you knowing you failed to save her. Then what do we do? Elena's hands clenched around her phone. Just let him murder her? We call his bluff, Adrian said. Show him we're not playing his game. That's not a bluff. That's Sarah's life. And if you go, it's your life too. Adrian's voice was hard. You think you're saving her by showing up? You're just giving Victor exactly what he wants, 2 victims instead of 1. Elena felt something break inside her chest. So we do nothing? We just abandon her? We make a calculated decision not to throw your life away on a suicide mission. It's not your decision to make. Elena's voice cracked, fury and fear warring in her throat. She's my friend, my responsibility. I won't just leave her to die because it's inconvenient for your plans. Your guilt isn't going to save her, Adrian said, and the bluntness of it was like a slap. Maybe not, but at least I'll have tried. Elena stood, her whole body trembling. I'm going, with or without your help. Sit down, Adrian ordered. No. The word hung in the air between them. Around the room, everyone had gone still, watching this collision of wills with wary eyes. Elena, Adrian said, his voice dropping to something dangerous. You walk out that door, you're dead. And Sarah dies anyway. That's the reality. Face it. The reality is that a good person is going to be tortured and killed because of me, Elena shot back. Because I ran. Because I chose to save myself instead of what? Marrying a monster? Letting him own you? Adrian closed the distance between them in 2 strides. Sarah being grabbed is not your fault. It's Victor's. He chose this, not you. But I can end it. You can die uselessly. Adrian's hands closed on her shoulders, not rough, but firm. Is that what Sarah would want? For you to throw yourself into Victor's hands? Elena's eyes burned. She'd want me to try. She'd want me to fight for her the way she tried to fight for me. Then fight smart, not stupid. Adrian's grip tightened. Give me 48 hours. Let us figure out where he's holding her, what his security looks like, what our options are. Rushing in blind gets everyone killed. We don't have 48 hours. He said midnight. He said midnight because he knows that's not enough time to plan, Reese interjected. He's counting on you being emotional, reckless. Don't give him what he wants. Elena wanted to scream, wanted to hit something, wanted to rewind time too before she'd ever met Victor, before her father had gambled their lives away, before any of this nightmare had started. But time didn't work that way. What if he kills her before 48 hours? Elena asked, hating how small her voice sounded. Then we make him pay for it, Sophia said quietly. But running into a trap doesn't change that outcome. It just adds your name to the casualty list. Elena pulled away from Adrian, wrapping her arms around herself. Every instinct screamed at her to do something, anything, but they were right. She knew they were right. That didn't make it hurt less. Okay, she whispered, 48 hours. But if we don't have a plan by then, we'll have a plan, Adrian said. James, start running every contact we have. I want to know where Victor's operating from, what properties he owns, where he'd take someone he wanted to keep hidden. Marcus, reach out to our people in the department. See if there have been any reports, any chatter. Nikolai, Sophia, start mapping potential extraction scenarios. Everyone moved at once, scattering to their tasks. Elena stood frozen in the middle of the room, her phone still clutched in her hand. Sarah's terrified face seared into her memory. Adrian stayed behind after the others left. I know this is hard, he said. You don't know anything, Elena said bitterly. Sarah's only in this mess because of me, because she was stupid enough to be my friend. Victor's responsible for Victor's actions. No one else. Easy for you to say. You're not the one who... Elena stopped, her throat closing. I should have just married him. None of this would have happened. And you'd be dead inside, Adrian said. Maybe actually dead within a year when he got bored or paranoid or angry. This was always going to get ugly, Elena. The only question was when. That doesn't help Sarah. No, but neither does guilt. Adrian moved to the window, looking out at the darkening sky. You want to do something useful? Help James with the intel gathering. The more we know about Victor's operations, the better our chances of finding her. Elena nodded numbly. It wasn't enough. Would never be enough. But it was something. She spent the next 6 hours glued to James's side, going through files, cross-referencing properties, looking for any clue that might tell them where Victor would stash a hostage. James worked with quiet efficiency, occasionally explaining what he was looking for, but mostly just letting Elena be useful. It helped. Barely. Around midnight, the time Victor had specified for the trade that wasn't happening, Elena's phone buzzed again. Disappointing. I thought you cared about your friends. I guess I was wrong. Then another photo. Sarah crying now, blood running from a cut above her eye. And another message. Every hour you don't show up, she loses something. First blood, then fingers, then worse. Your choice. Elena's hands shook so hard she nearly dropped the phone. He's bluffing, James said, looking over her shoulder at the screen. He wants you angry. Wants you to stop thinking clearly. What if he's not bluffing? James didn't answer, because they both knew Victor wasn't bluffing. Elena excused herself and went to the bathroom, where she locked the door and let herself break down. She cried silently, viciously, until her throat was raw and her eyes were swollen. Then she washed her face, straightened her shoulders, and went back to work. She was done crying. By 3 a.m, they had a list of 6 possible locations. By dawn, Marcus's police contacts had narrowed it down to 3. By mid-morning, surveillance footage from traffic cameras had given them a probable answer: an abandoned warehouse in the industrial district, recently purchased through a shell company with ties to Victor's organization. That's where she is, Adrian said, studying the satellite imagery Tommy had pulled up. It's isolated, easy to defend, close enough to the city that he can move her if needed. How do we get in? Elena asked. She'd been awake for over 24 hours, fueled by coffee and fear. We don't, Adrian said. Not yet. First we need eyes on the location. Confirm she's there. Count guards. Map entry and exit points. That'll take time we don't have. It'll take 12 hours, maybe less. Adrian looked at her. I know you want to move now, but going in half-cocked gets people killed. She's already being hurt, and she'll be hurt worse if we screw this up, Adrian said bluntly. Trust me. I've done this before. Patience saves lives. Elena wanted to argue, but the truth was, she had no experience with any of this. Adrian did. So she waited, the longest 12 hours of her life. Sophia took her to the range again, probably sensing that Elena needed to hit something. Elena burned through 200 rounds, her accuracy improving with each shot, muscle memory taking over where thought failed. You're getting good at this, Sophia observed. I hate it, Elena said, reloading. Every time I pull the trigger, I think about what it would feel like to point this at a person, to actually... Don't think about it, Sophia advised. If it comes to that, your body will know what to do. Thinking just slows you down. That's supposed to be comforting? It's supposed to be honest. Sophia took the gun from her, checked it, handed it back. You're not a killer, Elena, but you're a survivor. There's a difference. What if surviving means killing? Then you do what you have to do and deal with it after. Sophia's expression was hard. Guilt is a luxury you earn by staying alive. That philosophy was so foreign to everything Elena had believed about herself that she couldn't even process it, but she tucked it away for later, for if and when she needed it. By evening, Marcus and Nikolai returned from their reconnaissance. She's there, Marcus confirmed. Second floor, northwest corner. 3 guards that we could see, probably more inside. Victor's not there himself, too smart for that. But his second in command, a guy named Ramos, is running the show. Ramos, Adrian repeated, his expression darkening. He's worse than Victor in some ways. Enjoys the work too much. Elena felt sick. So what's the plan? We go in tonight. 2 teams, Marcus, Nikolai, and I take the main floor, create a distraction. Reese and Sophia go in through the roof access, get to Sarah, get her out. What about me? Elena asked. You stay here. Like hell I do. Adrian's jaw tightened. This isn't negotiable. Everything's negotiable. You taught me that. Elena stood her ground. Sarah doesn't know any of you. If she's been tortured, traumatized, she's not going to trust strangers, but she'll trust me. Which is exactly why you're a liability, Reese said. You'll be emotional, distracted. That gets people killed. Or it saves Sarah's life because I'm the one person who can actually reach her. Elena looked at Adrian. You said you wanted me to have agency, to make my own choices. Well, I'm choosing this. Adrian stared at her for a long moment. Then, to everyone's surprise, he nodded. Fine, but you follow orders exactly. No heroics, no improvising. You do what Sophia tells you when she tells you. Agreed? Agreed, Elena said, relief and terror flooding through her in equal measure. Then suit up, Sophia said, eyeing Elena critically. We leave in 2 hours. Those 2 hours passed in a blur of preparation. Sophia outfitted Elena in dark tactical clothing, showed her how to wear a comm unit, made her recite the plan until she could do it in her sleep. Elena was given a gun, the Glock she'd been practicing with, and spare magazines that felt heavy as bricks in her pockets. You probably won't need it, Sophia said, but probably isn't definitely. The drive to the warehouse was silent. Elena sat between Sophia and Reese in the back of an unmarked van, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. Up front, Marcus drove while Adrian reviewed the plan one last time. They parked 3 blocks away. The industrial district was deserted this time of night, all hollow buildings and broken streetlights. Perfect for things you wanted to keep hidden. Comms check, Adrian said quietly. One by one, they confirmed their connections. Elena's voice shook when it was her turn, but at least it worked. They split up. Marcus, Nikolai, and Adrian headed for the main entrance. Reese, Sophia, and Elena moved around to the back, where a rusted fire escape led to the roof. Up, Sophia whispered, gesturing. The climb was terrifying. The fire escape creaked and swayed, and Elena's hands were sweating despite the cold. But she made it to the roof without falling or making too much noise. The warehouse roof was flat, covered in gravel and debris. A single access door led down into the building. Reese examined the lock, pulled out a small toolkit, and had it open in under 30 seconds. They descended into darkness. The interior of the warehouse was a maze of corridors and empty rooms, lit only by the occasional bare bulb. Elena could hear voices somewhere below. Guards, maybe, or worse. Her grip tightened on the Glock. Sophia navigated by memory and blueprint, leading them through the second floor toward the northwest corner. They passed rooms full of dusty equipment, offices stripped of everything valuable, bathrooms that looked like horror movie sets. Then Sophia held up a fist, the signal to stop. Ahead, light spilled from beneath a closed door. And voices. 2 men, talking in low tones. That's our target, Reese whispered into the comm. 2 hostiles outside, waiting on your signal. Copy, Adrian's voice crackled back. 30 seconds. Those 30 seconds felt like 30 years. Then, distantly, Elena heard the crash of the main entrance being breached. Shouting, gunfire. The 2 guards outside Sarah's door immediately moved toward the noise, hands reaching for weapons. Reese and Sophia moved like predators. Silent, fast, brutal. The guards went down before they could make a sound. One hit with the butt of Reese's gun, the other taken down by Sophia in a move too quick for Elena to follow. Clear, Sophia whispered. She tried the door. Locked. Reese shot the lock. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. They burst through the door into a small room that smelled like blood and fear. And there was Sarah tied to a chair just like in the photo, her face swollen and bloody, her eyes wide with shock and hope and terror. Elena, she croaked. I'm here, Elena said, rushing forward. I'm here. I've got you. Her hands shook as she worked at the ropes binding Sarah's wrists. They were tied tight, cutting into her skin, and Elena's fingers fumbled with the knots. Faster, Sophia urged, keeping watch at the door. We've got maybe 2 minutes before reinforcements show up. I'm trying. Elena got one hand free, then the other. Sarah slumped forward, and Elena caught her. She was lighter than she should be, trembling violently. Can you walk? Reese asked. I think so. More gunfire below, closer now, and shouting, angry, coordinated shouting. We need to move, Sophia said. Now. They half-carried Sarah between them, retracing their steps through the labyrinth of corridors. Elena's world had narrowed to the sound of Sarah's ragged breathing, the weight of her friend's body, the pounding of her own heart. Behind them, footsteps, running footsteps. Contact rear! Reese yelled, spinning and firing. The pursuing guard went down, but more were coming. Elena could hear them, a tide of violence rushing up the stairs. Go, go, go! Sophia pushed them forward, providing covering fire. They made it to the roof access, started climbing. Sarah stumbled, nearly fell, but Elena caught her and hauled her upward through sheer desperate strength. Then they were on the roof, cold wind whipping around them, the fire escape their only way down. "Move!" Reese commanded. They descended in controlled chaos, Sarah gasping in pain with every step, Elena's hand slipping on the cold metal rails. Behind them, guards burst onto the roof, weapons raised, bullets pinged off metal. Elena felt one pass so close to her head that she felt the air displacement. But they reached the ground. Marcus was there with the van, door open, engine running. "In!" he barked. They threw themselves inside. Marcus hit the gas before the door was even closed, tires screaming as they peeled away from the warehouse. Elena held Sarah as the van careened through the streets, her friend sobbing into her shoulder, alive and broken and safe. "We made it," Elena whispered, as much to convince herself as Sarah. "You're safe now. I've got you." Behind them, the warehouse receded into the distance. But the danger was far from over. They didn't go back to the mansion. "Too predictable," Adrian said from the front seat, his voice tight with controlled adrenaline. "Victor knows we took her. He'll expect us to retreat to home base. We're going to the safe house instead." Elena barely heard him. She was focused on Sarah, who'd gone quiet and glassy-eyed in her arms. Shock, probably. Or worse. "She needs a doctor," Elena said. "We have one at the safe house," Reese replied, already on her phone. "Dr. Chen, he's discreet. I'm calling him now." The safe house turned out to be a nondescript apartment building in a middle-class neighborhood, the kind of place that looked so normal it was invisible. Marcus parked in an underground garage, and they took Sarah up through a service elevator, avoiding cameras and prying eyes. The apartment itself was sparse but clean. Generic furniture, no personal touches, nothing that suggested anyone actually lived here. A way station. A place to disappear. They settled Sarah on the couch, and Elena knelt beside her, not letting go of her hand. Sarah's eyes were unfocused, her breathing shallow and rapid. "Sarah, look at me," Elena said gently. "You're safe. Do you understand? You're safe." Sarah's eyes found hers, and for a moment Elena saw recognition. Then tears started streaming down her battered face. They said you were dead," Sarah whispered, "that Victor had killed you, that this was all my fault for trying to help you." "I'm not dead, I'm right here," Elena squeezed her hand. "And none of this is your fault, do you hear me? None of it." Before Sarah could respond, the door opened and a thin Asian man in his 60s entered, carrying a medical bag. Dr. Chen, Elena assumed. He moved to Sarah with professional efficiency, his eyes taking in her injuries with a practiced scan. "Let me examine her," he said quietly. Elena reluctantly moved aside, watching as Dr. Chen went to work. He was gentle but thorough, checking Sarah's pupils, her ribs, the cuts and bruises that covered her face and arms. Sarah flinched at his touch, but didn't pull away. "2 cracked ribs," Dr. Chen said after several minutes. "Possible concussion, multiple contusions and lacerations, none requiring stitches. She's dehydrated and malnourished, but nothing life-threatening. Mostly she needs rest, fluids, and time to heal." "Will she be okay?" Elena asked. "Physically, yes. Emotionally, Doctor." Chen glanced at Sarah's vacant expression. "That's a different question." He administered pain medication, wrapped Sarah's ribs, cleaned and dressed her wounds. Through it all, Sarah remained mostly silent, answering questions with single words or nods. Elena stayed close, a constant presence, until Dr. Chen finally finished and packed up his equipment. "Keep her quiet for the next 48 hours, he instructed. "No strenuous activity. Watch for signs of increased confusion or vomiting that could indicate the concussion is worsening. Call me if anything changes." He left as quietly as he'd arrived. In the main room, Adrian was deep in conversation with Marcus and Nikolai, their voices low but urgent. Elena caught fragments. Retaliation, exposure, endgame. She'd deal with that later. Right now, Sarah needed her. "Come on," Elena said softly, helping Sarah to her feet. "Let's get you cleaned up and into bed." The bathroom was small and utilitarian, but it had hot water. Elena helped Sarah out of her torn, blood-stained clothes and into the shower, staying close in case she needed support. Sarah stood under the spray like a statue, letting the water wash away the physical evidence of her captivity while the psychological scars remained. When she was clean and dressed in borrowed clothes, sweats and a t-shirt that hung loose on her frame, Elena guided her to the bedroom and tucked her into bed like a child. "Sleep," Elena said. "I'll be right outside if you need me." Sarah's hand shot out, grabbing Elena's wrist with surprising strength. "Don't leave." "I won't, I promise." Elena settled into the chair beside the bed. "I'm staying right here." Sarah's grip relaxed, and within minutes, exhaustion pulled her under. Elena watched her sleep, noting the way she flinched at sounds that didn't exist, the tears that leaked from beneath her closed eyelids. This was Elena's fault. Not in the way Sarah's captors had claimed. Elena wasn't responsible for Victor's cruelty, but her choices had put Sarah in Victor's crosshairs. That was undeniable. A soft knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. Adrian stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable in the dim light. "How is she?" he asked quietly. "Asleep, broken, alive." Elena's voice was flat. "Pick whichever answer you want." Adrian stepped into the room, careful not to make noise that might wake Sarah. "You did good tonight, getting her out." "I almost got her killed. If you hadn't been there, but I was. We were. And she's safe now." "For how long?" Elena looked up at him. "Victor's not going to let this go. We humiliated him twice now. First the wedding, now this. He's going to come at us with everything he has." "I know." Adrian leaned against the wall. "Which is why we need to move faster than planned. Strike before he can regroup. Strike how?" James finished analyzing the photos. He found enough evidence to tie Victor to 3 federal crimes: arms trafficking, bribery of a public official, and conspiracy to commit murder. Combined with testimony from some of Victor's former associates who've agreed to talk in exchange for protection, we can put him away for the rest of his life. Elena should have felt relieved. This was what they'd been working toward, but instead she felt hollow. "When?" she asked. "Federal agents are moving on him tomorrow morning, simultaneous raids on his properties, his businesses, his known associates. By noon, Victor Drazi will be in federal custody. And if he escapes, if he bribes the right people, threatens the right families, the evidence is airtight. The case is solid. He's done, Elena." Adrian's voice carried certainty. "This ends tomorrow." Elena wanted to believe him, but she'd learned the hard way that nothing was ever that simple. "What about Sarah?" she asked. "She's a witness now. He'll want her dead just as much as he wants me dead. Which is why she's getting the same protection you are. New identity, relocation, federal witness security if she wants it." Adrian paused. "Or she can stay here, under my protection, if she prefers." "Another cage, different bars, same result." "Safety isn't a cage," Adrian said, and there was an edge to his voice now. "I'm offering her a chance to survive this. What she does with it is her choice." "Like it was my choice?" Elena stood, careful not to disturb Sarah. "Let's not pretend any of this is about choice, Adrian. You needed a witness, so you grabbed me from that altar. You needed leverage, so you used me to get to Victor. Everything else, the protection, the safe house, the promises, that's just window dressing on what's really a transaction." Adrian's jaw tightened. "You think that's all this is to me? A transaction? I don't know what this is to you. You've never told me." They stared at each other in the half-darkness, tension crackling between them. Then Adrian shook his head and headed for the door. "Get some rest," he said without looking back. "Tomorrow's going to be a long day." He left, and Elena was alone with Sarah's sleeping form and her own tangled thoughts. She didn't sleep, couldn't. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Sarah's bruised face, heard her whispered confession, "They said you were dead." Victor had wanted Sarah to believe Elena was gone, wanted her to suffer not just physically, but emotionally, blaming herself for a death that hadn't happened. That kind of psychological torture was almost worse than the physical kind. By morning, Sarah woke screaming. Elena was there immediately, grabbing her hands, speaking in low, soothing tones. "You're safe. It's just a nightmare. You're safe." It took several minutes for Sarah to calm down, her breathing evening out, her wild eyes focusing on Elena's face. "I'm sorry," Sarah gasped. "I'm sorry, I—" "Don't apologize. You have nothing to be sorry for." Sarah's laugh was broken, edged with hysteria. I told them things, Elena. They asked questions and I tried to hold out, but what did you tell them? Where you liked to eat? Where you bought coffee? The name of your neighbor? Stupid things that didn't matter except they mattered to him. Sarah's face crumpled. I'm so sorry. Elena pulled her into a careful hug, mindful of her cracked ribs. You survived. That's what matters. Whatever you told them, it doesn't change anything. But even as she said it, Elena's mind was racing. If Sarah had given up details about Elena's life, her habits, her haunts, Victor could use that information, could set traps in places that felt safe. Nowhere was safe. Not really. Not while Victor was still free. She left Sarah with Sophia, who'd appeared with breakfast and a quiet competence that seemed to calm Sarah's frayed nerves, and found Adrian in the main room with Marcus and James, all of them clustered around a laptop. What's happening? Elena asked. The raids start in 20 minutes, James said, glancing up. Federal agents are in position at all 6 target locations. We've got a contact feeding us updates in real time. Elena moved closer, looking at the screen. It showed a live feed, somewhere official, all harsh fluorescent lights and government-issue furniture. Agents in tactical gear moving with purpose. Where's that? She asked. Victor's primary residence, Marcus said. They're going in first. Once they have him in custody, the other locations will move simultaneously. Elena watched, her stomach in knots, as the agents approached a massive estate. She recognized it from the engagement photos Victor had insisted on. His home, where he'd planned to bring her after the wedding. The place she would have been trapped if Adrian hadn't intervened. The agents breached the door with a battering ram, spread through the house with weapons drawn, shouted commands that the feed couldn't quite capture, and found nothing. He's not there, James said, his voice tight. Marcus, call your contact. Find out what's happening. Marcus was already on his phone, speaking in clipped tones. His expression grew darker with each word he heard. None of the locations have him, Marcus reported. His house, his office, his clubs, all empty. Not just Victor. His inner circle, too. It's like they vanished. He was tipped off, Adrian said, his voice deadly calm. Someone told him we were coming. That's impossible, James protested. The only people who knew were us and the federal team, unless we have a leak. Adrian's eyes were cold, either in their organization or in ours. The implications of that settled over the room like poison. If there was a traitor in Adrian's team, someone feeding information to Victor, then nowhere was safe. Every plan could be compromised, every move anticipated. We need to find out who, Reese said from the doorway. Elena hadn't heard her enter. Before they get anyone else killed. Agreed. Sorry. James, I want a full communication audit. Every call, every email, every message sent in the last 48 hours. Look for anything suspicious. Adrian turned to Marcus. Pull in the team. Everyone accounted for. Everyone under surveillance until we know who we can trust. You think it's one of us? Nikolai asked, his accent thicker with anger. One of your own people? I think Victor's smart enough to buy loyalty when he can't command it, and I think $200,000 is a lot of money to a lot of people. The words hung heavy in the air. Elena felt sick. She'd trusted these people with her life, with Sarah's life, and one of them might be working for the man who wanted them both dead. What about the evidence? She asked. The photos, the testimony, can't they still arrest him? They need to find him first, James said grimly, and Victor's very good at disappearing when he needs to. Elena's phone buzzed. She pulled it out, half expecting another threatening message from Victor. Instead, it was from her father. Elena, please. Victor says he'll let everything go if you just come home. He's willing to forgive and forget. This can all end peacefully. Call me. She stared at the message, rage building in her chest. Her father. Still trying to trade her. Still trying to negotiate away her freedom like it was just another poker chip. She showed the message to Adrian. He's using your father as a proxy, Adrian said. Trying to seem reasonable, offering mercy. It's a trap. Obviously, but it tells us something. Victor's getting desperate. He lost face when you ran, lost more when we rescued Sarah. Now the feds are hunting him and he's in hiding. He wants to regain control of the narrative. By what? Pretending to be merciful? Elena's laugh was bitter. No one would believe that. His people would, the ones still loyal to him. If he can present this as him being the bigger man, offering peace while we're the aggressors, it gives him cover, makes him look like the victim. Elena deleted the message without responding. The rest of the morning was tense, everyone watching everyone else with suspicion. Tommy ran security checks. James combed through digital communications. Adrian interviewed each team member privately, looking for inconsistencies, signs of betrayal. Elena stayed with Sarah, who was quiet and withdrawn, picking at the food Sophia brought her. I want to go home, Sarah said finally. You can't, not yet. It's not safe. None of this is safe, Elena. Your life, it's not safe. This world you're in, these people. Sarah gestured vaguely at the walls around them. I can't live like this, hiding, running, waiting for the next attack. I know, I'm sorry. Stop apologizing. Sarah's voice was sharper than Elena had ever heard it. I'm not angry at you. I'm angry at the situation. At Victor for being a monster. At your father for being a coward. At myself for not being strong enough to... Her voice broke. Elena took her hand. You're the strongest person I know. You survived. That takes more strength than most people have. I don't feel strong. I feel broken. Broken can heal. Can it? Sarah met her eyes. Because I don't think I'm ever going to feel safe again. Every door that opens, every footstep I hear, I'm back in that room, tied to that chair, waiting for the next... She stopped, shuddering. Elena had no answer for that, no platitude that would make it better. So she just held Sarah's hand and let her cry. Later, when Sarah had exhausted herself into sleep again, Elena found Adrian on the apartment's small balcony, staring out at the city. The afternoon sun was weak and watery, doing nothing to cut the chill in the air. Did you find anything? Elena asked. No, which means either our traitor is very good or I'm wrong about there being one. Adrian didn't look at her. I don't like either option. What happens now? We wait, watch. Victor has to surface eventually. He's too arrogant to stay hidden forever. When he does, we'll be ready. And in the meantime, we just sit here? We stay alive. Adrian finally turned to her. I know it's not the dramatic confrontation you were probably hoping for, but survival is 90% patience and 10% action. I wasn't hoping for anything dramatic, Elena said. I was hoping for it to be over. It will be, soon. You keep saying that. But every time we get close, he slips away. Every time we think we have him cornered, he's already 3 steps ahead. Elena wrapped her arms around herself. What if he's always 3 steps ahead? What if we can never catch him? Then we change the game, stop chasing and make him come to us. You mean use me as bait? I mean give him what he thinks he wants in a way that actually serves us. Elena studied his face, trying to read the calculation behind his eyes. You have a plan. The beginning of one. Adrian leaned against the railing. Victor wants you. Wants to make an example, restore his reputation. What if we let him think he can have you? You want me to walk into his hands? I want him to think you're walking into his hands. Set up a meeting, public place, controlled environment. He thinks he's getting you back, but really we're getting him in the open where the feds can grab him. It was risky, insane even, but Elena couldn't see another option. What if it goes wrong? She asked. Then I get you out, same as before. You might not be able to this time. I will, Adrian said, and the certainty in his voice should have been comforting. Instead, it scared her, because that kind of certainty meant he'd do anything, risk anything, to keep his word. And Elena was starting to realize that she didn't want him taking those risks. Not for her. When had that changed? When had Adrian stopped being just the man who'd grabbed her from the altar and started being more? I need to think about it, Elena said. Take your time. We've got until... His phone rang, cutting him off. He answered, listened, his expression going hard. When? He asked. Where? How many casualties? Elena's blood went cold. Something had happened. Something bad. Adrian hung up. Victor just hit one of my warehouses on the south side, burned it to the ground. 3 of my people were inside. They didn't make it out. Oh my God! He's escalating, trying to draw me out, make me angry enough to make mistakes. Adrian's voice was ice. It's working. What are you going to do? What I should have done from the start. End this. Adrian headed for the door. Stay here with Sarah. Don't leave for any reason. Marcus and Reese are staying as security. I'll be back when it's done. Adrian, wait! But he was already gone, taking Nikolai and James with him. Elena stood on the balcony, the weight of 3 new deaths pressing on her chest. 3 more people dead because of this war between Adrian and Victor. 3 more lives traded in a game Elena hadn't asked to play. She went back inside to find Marcus and Reese in quiet conversation, their faces grim. Where did he go? Elena asked. To end it, Reese said simply, one way or another. By doing what? Whatever it takes. That non-answer terrified Elena more than the truth might have, because she was starting to understand that in Adrian's world, whatever it takes had very few limits. Night fell. Elena sat with Sarah, both of them too wired to sleep, jumping at every sound. The apartment felt smaller by the hour, the walls closing in. Around midnight, Elena's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her. Hello? Elena? Victor's voice was smooth, cultured, utterly devoid of emotion. I think it's time we talked. Just you and me. No intermediaries. No violence. Just a conversation about how this ends. Elena's hand tightened on the phone. How did you get this number? I get everything I want eventually. You should know that by now. A pause. I'm sending you an address. Come alone. If you bring Adrian or any of his people, Sarah dies. If you don't show up in the next hour, Sarah's family dies, starting with her mother. Sarah's not with you anymore. I know, but her mother is still at home, isn't she? And her younger brother just started his sophomore year at Northern Illinois. It would be a shame if anything happened to them. Elena's blood turned to ice. You're bluffing. Am I? Want to test that theory? Victor's voice hardened. 1 hour, Elena. The address is on its way. Don't disappoint me. He hung up. A text arrived seconds later. An address in the financial district, a high-rise office building. Elena stared at the message, her mind racing. This was the trap Adrian had been worried about. Victor wouldn't just let her walk away after a conversation. He'd kill her, or worse. But if she didn't go, he'd go after Sarah's family, and Elena couldn't live with more blood on her hands. She looked toward the bedroom where Sarah slept, medicated and exhausted. Then at Marcus and Reese, who were watching security feeds, unaware of the ultimatum Elena had just received. She could tell them, should tell them, but they'd stop her from going, and then Sarah's family would die. Or she could do what Victor wanted, meet him, face whatever came next. Elena made her choice. She grabbed her coat, slipped the Glock into her waistband. Sophia had made her promise to keep it close, and headed for the door. Where are you going? Reese asked sharply. Bathroom, Elena lied. Can't sleep. But instead of the bathroom, she went out the front door, down the stairs, into the cold Chicago night, and toward whatever waited for her in that high-rise. She was done being a pawn, done letting other people make her choices. If this was ending, it was ending on her terms, even if those terms meant walking straight into hell. The high-rise loomed against the night sky, all glass and steel and money. Elena stood across the street, staring up at it, the Glock a cold weight against her spine. She'd taken a ride share. The driver had looked at her strangely when she'd given him the address, probably wondering what business a woman in jeans and a coat had in the financial district at this hour. She wondered the same thing. Her phone had been buzzing nonstop since she'd left the apartment. Adrian, probably. Marcus. Reese. All of them realizing she was gone, all of them trying to stop her from doing exactly what she was about to do. Elena turned the phone off and dropped it in a trash can. No more distractions, no more second-guessing. The building's lobby was empty except for a single security guard who looked up from his desk as she entered. He was young, nervous, and when Elena gave him the floor number Victor had texted, he didn't ask questions, just nodded and pointed to the elevators. Penthouse is 42, he said. Key's already been authorized. Of course it had. Victor controlled everything, even from hiding. The elevator ride up felt like descending instead of ascending, like she was dropping into some abyss rather than rising through a building. Her reflection stared back at her from the mirrored walls, pale, hollow-eyed, scared, but standing. The woman in that mirror wasn't the same one who'd stood at the altar 2 weeks ago. That woman had been trapped by other people's choices. This woman was walking into danger by her own decision. There was power in that, even if the decision was probably going to get her killed. The elevator opened onto a reception area that was all dark wood and muted lighting, and standing in the center of it, hands in the pockets of an expensive suit, was Victor Drazi. He looked the same as he had at the church, sharp, controlled, dangerous. But there was something different in his eyes now, something colder. "Elena," he said, like they were old friends meeting for drinks. "I'm glad you came. I wasn't sure you would. You threatened Sarah's family. What choice did I have?" "There's always a choice." Victor gestured to a pair of chairs near the windows. "Sit. Let's talk like civilized people." "I'll stand." "Suit yourself." Victor moved to the windows, looking out at the city spread below them. Beautiful, isn't it? All those lights. All those people living their small lives, completely unaware of how the real world works. Who actually pulls the strings? "Is that what you tell yourself?" Elena asked. "That you're somehow above everyone else? That your money and your violence make you important?" Victor's smile was thin. "My money and my violence make me free. Something you've never understood. You've spent your whole life being pushed around, by your father, by circumstance, by your own weakness. And then Adrian Vale crashed my wedding and you thought he was saving you, but he wasn't, was he? He was just trading one cage for another." "Adrian's not you." "No, he's worse in some ways. At least I'm honest about what I am. Adrian pretends his hands are clean because he has principles, a code. But at the end of the day, we're the same. Men who take what we want and destroy anyone who gets in our way." Victor turned to face her. "The difference is, I would have given you everything. Security, luxury, protection. What has Adrian given you? Fear, running, a life in hiding?" "He gave me a choice," Elena said. "You never did that." "Choice." Victor said the word like it disgusted him. "You want to know what choice gets you? Sarah, tortured because you chose to run. 3 of Adrian's people burned alive because you chose to involve yourself in a war that had nothing to do with you. And now, here you are, having chosen to walk into this building alone, probably about to die. How's choice working out for you?" The words hit harder than Elena wanted to admit, because he was right about one thing. Her choices had led to consequences. People had suffered, people had died. But that didn't make Victor right. "You're the one who hurt Sarah," Elena said quietly. "You're the one who killed those people. My choices didn't do that. You did. Because you can't stand losing control. Because someone defied you and your ego couldn't handle it." Victor's expression hardened. "Careful, Elena. You're here on my mercy." "No, I'm not. I'm here because you're desperate." Elena felt something click into place, a clarity she hadn't had before. "The feds are closing in. Your people are scattering. Your empire's collapsing. And you thought if you could get me back, if you could prove you still have power over me, maybe you could salvage something. But you can't. It's over, Victor. You just haven't accepted it yet." For a long moment, Victor stared at her. Then he laughed, and the sound was genuinely amused. "You've grown a spine," he said. "I'll give you that. The woman I was going to marry would never have spoken to me like that. The woman you were going to marry doesn't exist anymore. You killed her when you tried to buy her. Then I'll mourn her loss." Victor's hand moved inside his jacket. Elena's hand moved to the Glock at her back. But Victor just pulled out his phone. "Let me show you something." He turned the screen toward her. It showed a live feed, Sarah's mother's house. 2 men standing outside, weapons visible. "One call," Victor said conversationally, "and they go inside. Sarah's mother dies. Her brother dies. Maybe I'll have them burn the house down, make it look like an accident. Tragic." Elena's finger found the Glock's grip. "You won't." "Won't I? What's stopping me?" "The fact that you need me cooperative. You kill them, I've got nothing left to lose. And a person with nothing to lose is dangerous." Victor considered this. "Fair point. So let's negotiate. You come back to me. Willingly. Publicly. We stage a reconciliation. You were confused, scared. Adrian manipulated you. We get married like we were supposed to. You play the dutiful wife, and I let Sarah and her family live. I even let Adrian live as long as he stays out of my business. You expect me to believe you'd honor that deal? I expect you to realize it's the best offer you're going to get. Victor pocketed his phone. Because the alternative is I start killing everyone you've ever cared about, one by one, until you beg me to take you back. And then I'll kill them anyway, just to teach you what happens when you embarrass me. Elena's hand tightened on the Glock. She could draw it. Shoot him. Maybe she'd hit him before his guards, wherever they were, cut her down. But that wouldn't save Sarah's family. Wouldn't stop the men at that house. I need proof they're safe first, Elena said. Call off your men. Let me verify Sarah's family is okay. Then we'll talk. Victor smiled. Smart, distrustful. I like this version of you better than the scared girl at the altar. He pulled out his phone again. But no, you don't get to set terms. You get to choose. Accept my offer now, or I make that call and you live with the consequences. The elevator behind Elena dinged. She spun, heart hammering, expecting Victor's guards. Instead, Adrian stepped out, followed by Marcus and Nikolai, all three of them armed. Step away from her, Victor, Adrian said, his voice deadly calm. Victor's expression didn't change. I was wondering when you'd show up. Did you really think I wouldn't notice her phone going dark? That I wouldn't anticipate you following her? Did you really think I'd let her walk into a trap alone? Oh, this isn't a trap, Victor gestured around them. This is an ending. One way or another, this ends tonight. Agreed, Adrian said. He looked at Elena. Are you hurt? No, she managed. But he has people at Sarah's family's house. Had people, Marcus interjected. We pulled them 10 minutes ago. Sarah's mother and brother are in protective custody. Relief flooded through Elena, but Victor just laughed. Of course you did. Always so thorough, Adrian. It's almost admirable. Victor's hand went to his jacket again, and this time it came out with a gun. But thorough doesn't mean invincible. 3 more men emerged from the shadows of the reception area, guards Elena hadn't even noticed. They had weapons trained on Adrian and his people. Here's how this works, Victor said. You all put down your guns, very slowly, or we find out who's faster. There are federal agents in this building, Adrian said. 3 floors down, waiting for my signal. You fire that weapon, they come up here, and you're done. Bluffing, Victor said. If the feds were here, you wouldn't have come up alone. You'd have let them handle it. I'm not bluffing. Adrian's expression was stone. This was always the plan. Draw you out, get you somewhere contained, let the law handle you. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Victor's face. You're lying. Am I? Adrian pulled out his phone with his free hand. 1 button, that's all it takes. Then why haven't you pressed it? Because I wanted to give Elena closure. A chance to face you on her terms, not theirs. Adrian's eyes met Elena's. But if you'd rather do this the hard way, I'm fine with that too. Victor's gun swung toward Elena. She's the one I want. The rest of you can leave, but she stays. No, Adrian said simply. Then she dies right now. The shot came from Elena. She'd drawn the Glock without thinking, muscle memory from Sophia's training taking over. The bullet hit Victor's shoulder, spinning him around, his gun clattering to the floor. His guards reacted immediately, but so did Adrian's people. The reception area erupted into chaos, gunfire, shouting, bodies moving in lethal choreography. Elena dropped to the floor, hands over her head, her ears ringing from the enclosed space, amplifying every shot. She'd fired a gun, actually fired at a person. The reality of it was trying to sink in, but there was no time for processing. Someone grabbed her arm, Marcus, pulling her toward cover behind a desk. Stay down! Through the gaps in the desk, Elena could see Victor on the floor, clutching his shoulder, blood seeping through his fingers. His guards were down, 1 unconscious, 2 dead, the 3rd surrendering with his hands up. Adrian stood over Victor, his gun trained on the man who'd tried to own Elena. It's over, Adrian said. Victor laughed, even through the pain. You think this ends me? I have lawyers, judges on my payroll. I'll be out in a year, maybe less. And when I am, you won't be. Adrian pulled out his phone and pressed a button. Federal agents, 42nd floor. We have Victor Drazi in custody. Armed guards neutralized. 1 civilian safe. Sirens immediately started wailing, distant but getting closer. Victor's face went pale. You actually did it. You actually brought the feds. I told you I wasn't bluffing. Adrian knelt beside him. And those lawyers you mentioned? They're going to have a hard time defending you against arms trafficking, conspiracy, kidnapping, attempted murder, and the half-dozen other charges they're filing. Especially when the evidence includes photographs, testimony from your former associates, and financial records showing every dirty deal you've made in the last 5 years. You bastard, Victor hissed. Maybe, but I'm a bastard who keeps his promises. Adrian stood as the elevator dinged again. Federal agents this time, a dozen of them, flooding into the reception area with weapons drawn. They secured Victor, read him his rights, called for medical assistance for his shoulder. Through it all, Victor kept his eyes on Elena, hatred burning in their depths. This isn't over, he said as they lifted him to his feet. I'll find a way. I always do. But his voice lacked conviction. He knew the truth, even if he wouldn't admit it. He'd lost. One of the agents approached Elena, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and an ID badge that read Special Agent Chen. Ms. Cross, I'm going to need you to come with us. We have some questions. Is she under arrest? Adrian asked immediately. No, she's a witness and possibly a victim depending on what we find in our investigation. Agent Chen offered Elena a hand up. We'll take your statement, make sure you're safe, get you medical attention if needed. Elena took her hand and stood, her legs shaking. What about Sarah? Her family? Already in protective custody, like your friend said. They're safe. The relief was almost painful. Elena nodded, not trusting her voice. As the agents led Victor away, he looked back one last time. You think you won, he said to Elena, but you didn't. You just traded one owner for another. Adrian Vale doesn't let go of his possessions either. I'm not his possession, Elena said quietly. I'm not anyone's. And for the first time, she actually believed it. The next several hours were a blur of statements and questions and forms. Elena told the agents everything about the forced marriage, about the photographs, about Sarah's kidnapping and rescue. She left nothing out. By the time they finished, dawn was breaking over Chicago. Agent Chen drove her back to the safe house herself, making sure Elena got inside safely before leaving with a promise to stay in touch. Inside, she found Sarah awake and terrified, flanked by Sophia and Reese. Elena! Sarah rushed to her, then stopped, seeing the blood on Elena's clothes. Victor's blood. Are you hurt? What happened? I'm okay. It's over. Victor's in federal custody. Your family's safe. Elena pulled her into a careful hug. It's really over. Sarah started crying, great heaving sobs of relief and release. Elena held her, feeling her own tears start to fall. They'd survived. Against all odds, they'd survived. Later, after Sarah had been reassured repeatedly and had finally fallen into exhausted sleep, Elena found Adrian on the balcony again. He was watching the sunrise, his profile sharp against the growing light. You followed me, Elena said, joining him. Did you really think I wouldn't? I hoped you would, even though I told myself I was doing it alone. Elena leaned against the railing. Thank you. For coming. For bringing the feds. For ending it. You're the one who shot him, Adrian pointed out. I just cleaned up the aftermath. I shot him. Elena tested the words, seeing how they felt. They should have felt heavier, more significant. Instead, they just felt necessary. I've never hurt anyone before. How do you feel about it? Honestly, I don't know yet. Ask me in a week when the adrenaline's worn off. She paused. He said something right before they took him away, that I just traded one owner for another, that you don't let go of possessions either. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Is that what you think? I think you had your own reasons for pulling me out of that church, reasons that had more to do with revenge than rescue. Elena turned to face him. But I also think somewhere along the way, it became about more than that, for both of us. What are you saying, Elena? I'm saying I don't know what this is between us. I don't know if it's gratitude or trauma bonding or something real, but I know I don't want to figure it out while I'm still in your debt, still under your protection, still living in your world. Adrian's jaw tightened. So you're leaving. I'm choosing my own path, the way I should have done years ago, before my father made choices for me, before Victor tried to own me, Before any of this happened, Elena's voice was steady despite the fear. I need to know who I am when I'm not running or hiding or being saved. I need to find that out on my own. And then? Then maybe I come back. Maybe we figure out what this could be when we're both choosing it freely, without coercion or obligation or gratitude muddying the water. She held his gaze. But I can't do that now. Not yet. Adrian looked at her for a long time, something complicated passing behind his eyes. Then, slowly, he nodded. Okay. Okay? Elena had expected an argument, a negotiation. Okay. You want to leave? You leave. No strings, no obligations. Adrian's voice was rough. I told you from the beginning, I don't own you. I meant that. But Elena? Yeah? When you're ready, when you figured out who you are without anyone else's expectations weighing you down, come find me. Let me show you who I am when I'm not just the man who crashed your wedding. See if what's between us is real or just adrenaline and proximity. Elena felt something warm unfold in her chest. That sounds like a plan. It's a terrible plan. Waiting, uncertainty, no guarantees. Welcome to freedom, Elena said, and found herself smiling. It's terrifying and messy and nothing like the fairy tales promise, but it's mine. Adrian smiled back and it transformed his face, made him look younger, less haunted. Yeah, it's yours. 3 weeks later, Elena stood in a photography gallery in Portland, Oregon, looking at her work on the walls. They were new photographs, landscapes and street scenes from her cross-country journey, images she'd taken as she drove west with no destination in mind, just the need to move, to see things on her own terms. Sarah had come with her for the first week, then returned to Chicago to start therapy and reconnect with her family. They talked every day. Sarah was healing, slowly but surely, becoming someone new the way Elena was. Elena's father had tried to contact her twice. She'd blocked his number both times. Maybe someday she'd be ready for that conversation. But not yet. Not while she was still building herself into someone who wouldn't let him guilt her into silence. The gallery owner approached, smiling. We've already had 3 inquiries about purchasing prints. I think this collection is going to do very well. Elena thanked her, feeling pride mixed with disbelief. She was supporting herself with her art, living alone in a small apartment with a window that faced the mountains, making choices based on what she wanted, not what she owed. It was terrifying. It was lonely sometimes. It was the most alive she'd ever felt. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number, but she knew who it was before she even opened it. Saw the announcement about your show. Congratulations. Proud of you. Just that. No demands, no request to come back. Just acknowledgement. Elena smiled and typed back, "Thank you. How are you?" The response came quickly. Different, better, maybe. Harder to tell without you here as a measuring stick. You turning philosophical on me? You bring it out in me. Or maybe I'm just getting old. Elena laughed out loud, drawing looks from the other gallery visitors. She typed, "I miss you." The truth of it surprised her. She'd spent 3 weeks determinedly not thinking about Adrian, about what they might have been or could still be. But now, with distance and clarity, she could admit it. She missed him. His response took longer this time. "Miss you too, but take your time. I'm not going anywhere." "Promise?" "Promise. Besides, I've got patience. 90% of survival, remember?" Elena remembered everything. The church, the mansion, the warehouse rescue, that last sunrise on the balcony, remembered the man who'd given her a choice when no one else would. She didn't know when she'd be ready to go back, to see if what they'd found in the chaos could exist in the calm. But she knew she would eventually, because the woman she was becoming wanted to choose her own future. And maybe, just maybe, that future included the dangerous man who'd become her safest place. But first, she had to finish becoming. Elena put her phone away and turned back to her photographs, to the evidence of her journey, her choices, her freedom. Outside the gallery, rain started to fall on Portland's streets, washing everything clean. And Elena Cross stood in the middle of her own life, finally, completely, undeniably her own. The ending wasn't perfect. It wasn't tied up with neat ribbons and guarantees, but it was hers, and that was enough.